Okay, now this is probably the first time in the last couple of years since roughly my first commentaries that I've ever felt nervous about doing a commentary. I had to sort of walk back to the microphone 3 or 4 times, sit down and then stand back up and walk away before I did this and really think about it. I don't know why the nerves just kicked in, but yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway and hopefully it'll fare up. Now, I feel the need to do this because people want a bit of an explanation about some tweets that I sent out on Saturday night. For those of you who saw them, you'll know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, you can always go back and have a look if you want, but I'll explain them eventually as we get into the commentary. But first of all, I just want to let you know the series of events that led up to that and sort of let you know where my head was at. Now, last week was probably one of the worst weeks I've had in quite a long time. Basically, on the Sunday, sometime after I did that last video about my daughter having the APOC rage, everything sort of went downhill in this household. My daughter was literally sitting there. We put the food in front of her, gave her a Sunday dinner, and she looked in and she said, I just fit, my stomach's hurting, I don't feel very well. As kids do, and you think, oh, she doesn't want to eat her dinner, and I tried forcing it down her and everything. Not physically, but you know what I'm saying. And she just said, no, I want to get to bed. And I felt ahead, I thought, oh, she feels a bit hot. So I took her upstairs, sat her down in bed. I thought, I'll read her a story that'll send her off to sleep. And I started reading her a story and she literally just jumped out of bed, ran for the bathroom, didn't quite make it, and proceeded to projectile vomit everywhere, all over the floor, all over my clothes, everything. And yeah, it was quite horrible to see, your little one going through that, but that's just how it is. You got to deal with that at some stage. Now, obviously, that was sort of going on throughout the night. And it became clear that she'd either eaten something or got this stomach bug that's going around, because there's a massive epidemic of stomach bugs going around at the moment in England. And I suppose it was just a matter of time before it hit us. So I had to take care of her and everything else, last a bit of time at work. Then the next night it was my wife's turn. She got sick, really sick, like really bad. So of course I was back to, sort of nursing everybody and everything else. So of course I wasn't really uploading. Now on the third day, it was my turn. I had something to eat, I ate my meal, and I was watching telly and I thought, man, my food is not going down. My stomach felt like a fucking 30-a-day beer drinker, it was just bloated out, it was horrible. And I sort of went to bed, couldn't really sleep, got too uncomfortable, sat downstairs, watched a bit of telly late at night. And I got to this point, I thought, oh no, I need some air. So I opened up my front door, poked my head out, and the sensation of the cold air going in my lungs just forced me to have no alternative but to run out into the front garden and throw my guts up. And the problem was I was stark bollock naked, I had no clothes on at all. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and unfortunately, we live on quite a quiet estate, but the problem was there was this one guy who decided he wanted to take his dog for a nice quiet late night walk, and happened to walk past the back end of me and see my arse sticking up in the air and my teeth coming out of my mouth. So I don't know what he was more traumatised by, the fact he could see straight up my asshole out of my mouth or what was coming out of me. But yeah, that was a problem. So I had 2 to 3 days of that. Now, the biggest issue I had with that was that, a lot of you guys know I suffer with anxiety disorder. It's an ongoing problem, I have to deal with it. I've sort of conquered my demons and I'm cracking on with life. But the problem is I have to take medication every day. I have to take my meds. Now, when you have things like depression and all these mental illnesses, I suppose, because it is a mental illness, if you miss one course of your tablets, it's a problem. And because I wasn't able to keep anything down, I missed 3. I missed 3 days of my medication. So my mood, apart from the fact that I was completely dehydrated, just had no energy, headaches, obviously my mood really sank downhill. So that would take me straight through to Friday. Now, on Saturday, I started to feel a little bit better, just starting to get myself back. I'd lost some time at work, which wasn't healthy. But I had a little bit of savings in the bank, so I wasn't fretting too much. Now, in the midst of all this, I had a bit of bad news come up about one member of my family, which didn't help as well, and it sort of added fuel to the fire. And my wife, God bless her, turned around to me and she said, look, I tell you what, you need cheering up. You're clearly down, you're clearly miserable, you haven't been taking your medication, you've started taking your first one today. Go and get yourself a few beers for tonight, go and get a curry or something, have a boys' night in, and go and purchase a nice next-gen console, because you've been after one, you keep complaining about them, you get these puppy dog eyes every time we walk past the shops as you're looking at the PS4s and the Xbox Ones. I can't take it anymore, go and get a fucking PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, whichever one you want. And she sort of mentioned, your channel needs it, you keep saying you've got to get one, just do it. That's your treat for this month, go out and buy one. And she kind of turned around and she said, look, at the end of the day, you're earning on YouTube. I don't make a lot of money. I'm probably make about £50 to £60 a month, which isn't, you know, the greatest amount of money in the world. It's not enough to live on, but it's nice. It's a nice little bonus. And I normally put that money into normal life. And she said, look, just put it back into your channel. That's why you earn it. That's the original reason why you wanted to get partnered. So you can put it straight back into your channel. So whatever you spend out of your own personal savings, it can go back in as you earn over time. Now that was fantastic, and it did actually really pick my mood up. So I did. I went out, I bought some beers, I got my Xbox One, I sat down, I chilled out, and I was having a nice time. Now, the problem is I hadn't really uploaded anything for a while, so of course that was adding a little bit of stress to me as well, because I like to get things uploaded. I like to be able to give you something to watch, and I like to hopefully think that people are entertained. And I hadn't done that for roughly about a week coming on. So I thought, well, I need to sit down and do something. But before I did, because I hadn't really been plugging into my channel, because just looking at TV screens and everything else was hurting my eyes beforehand, I thought I'm going to go onto Social Blade, which is kind of like my mecca. You know, it's my Bible that I refer to see how the progression of my channel is, to see what my earnings could be, and also to see how my subscription rate is growing. So I went into Social Blade, I had a look, and to my absolute horror of being the first time that I'd looked at this thing in a week, I noticed that YouTube had deleted 300,000 of my views over a period of 3 days. Now, I don't know how they got to that figure, but it was the fucking straw that broke the camel's back. It was the tipping point. It just tipped me over the edge. You know, my mood was down anyway because of my lack of medication, and obviously I'd had drinks as well, and I got drunk very easily because I was so bloody used to not having anything in me. I probably shouldn't have drank really, but you know, I wanted to treat myself. I wanted to feel normal again. And looking at my Social Blade stats and seeing that once upon a time I could see, you know, a couple of thousand views here, and that day you got that many views, everything counted back to zero. Everything, as if I'd never done a video in my life. The whole counter went down. You get no views per month, no views per year. Your earnings are zero per year. And bearing in mind that my wife turned around and said, yeah, you know, on the pretense that you're going to be earning, you can have this Xbox One, I then had to turn around and explain to her, look, I'm probably not going to earn from YouTube now. I've got to start again. I don't know when the next time I'm going to make money off this. Sorry about that. I kind of really lost it, and I contacted YouTube, I contacted Social Blade, and I said, what is going on? What is the explanation for this? And their explanation to me was that maybe I'd taken down some videos, and it was like, well, no. You know, bearing in mind I probably get about 3,000 to 4,000 views per video, I would have to take down somewhere in the tune of about 100 videos in order to lose that many views. They're wrong. So the next thing that came back to me that YouTube said was that I'd been view botting. Now when you're like me and you're temperamental and you have this mental fucking disorder and somebody says something to you like that, which is almost like a bit of an accusation, I just cracked. I just lost it, and I went mad over Twitter. I sent out some shit, and I haven't really referred to the tweets that I said. I've seen a few retweets, but I haven't read them. And it was along the lines of, my God, it's no wonder people fucking quit YouTube when they have things like this happen, you know, and you just lose faith and blah blah. My God, apocalypse done. You know, I need some time to fucking think about this. I need some time to reevaluate. Maybe I should just concentrate on life and stop putting all my eggs in one basket. And I just went mad. I just got it out there and lost it. I wanted to vent. You know, it's like, I couldn't really, I've said this before, I can't really turn around and sort of whinge about this to my wife, because she'll just look and go, I don't care, you know. I'm not interested in YouTube channel. But, you know, you want sort of people over Twitter to say, oh God, I hear you, and oh, I've had that happen, and this is the sort of route you can take. But I took it a little bit too far. Now, the aftermath of that was that people were kind of upset about it, worried about it. There was, you know, a guy busting cars and made a video the next day, sort of like with some hard words, you know, essentially saying that, I don't want to sound like I'm blowing smoke on my own ass, but he sort of turned around and said, look, I've lost my favourite YouTuber, the guy who inspired me, and now you've gone and fucked off and you've done it over Twitter. And then it sort of reverted to, I'm disappointed in you, fuck you, you can't do this. You know, and I don't hold any grudges against him for that. He was sort of being tough love, is what I like to call it. You know, pick yourself up and pull yourself together. But problem was, I just wasn't in the mood to read or listen to any of that, and I just had to have some time out and have a think. But clearly, damage had been done, and I'd stirred up the hornet's nest. Now, I've had a couple of days, I've chilled out, I've just stayed off the YouTube scene, and I had some time to reevaluate and think, and I thought, I don't want to quit, I don't want to pack up. You know, I know I've done these kind of things before where I've vented off and then said, oh, it's all cool. You know, and that's probably the most serious I've got about it. And at the end of the day, it's just figures. You know, if I'm not making money out of YouTube, whatever. I don't do this for money anyway. The money was a nice little Brucey bonus at the end of the day for me. It was there, it came in, and it just helped to pay towards stuff. And I was just more looking forward to the fact that now it's actually going back into the channel, and YouTube can suddenly just turn around like the Gestapo and say, no, you're not entitled to that. and it just felt like I've been a bit cheated. The only kind of comparison I can put it into from my perspective is it's almost like I've spent the last 3 years as a bricklayer building a wall, you know, and sort of at the end of the week going back and counting the bricks and saying, yeah, I'm doing well this week, or oh, I need to pick it up, and you know, I'm not making much money out of this wall, but in the future, hopefully one day, I will make enough money where it's good for me. And then, you know, just one day turning up and somebody kicked the whole fucking wall down. That was how it felt. And I wouldn't be very happy if that happened, as I wasn't very happy when it happened on Saturday night. So, and you know, at the end of the day, all I've got left to say is I'm just sorry. You know, there's nothing really I can do about it. Unfortunately, I'm quite an imbalanced person. And I sort of make jest about it with the rage and fails. That's just who I am. I'm a man on the fucking edge. And, you know, I've got an element of control over it, and sometimes I do it for pure comedy anyway. But when it comes to just completely lacking out on your medication that you so need for 3 days, and then combining it with alcohol and fucking realms of disappointment with certain things that keep constantly happening, I just blew everything out of proportion. So if I've disappointed anybody, I'm sorry. If I scared anybody, I'm sorry about that. And to Boston Cast, you know, I'm sorry you had to make a video about it. The fact of the matter is, I absolutely fucking missed uploading videos last week, and I think probably that contributed a little bit towards the doldrums, I don't know. Basically, just take no fucking notice of me, and put it down to me being me. Sorry it's been a while, but hopefully you'll understand a bit more now. Much love, Apocalypse done.